I got two hands, I got my mouth, I know how to earn money.
She absolutely does. She doesn't miss a trick. Okay, you're gonna have to hang in there because I'm gonna be reading the whole booklet. Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of patience, but there's a reason. Yes, I do have a little bit of writing skills, contrary to people's opinion. This is something I produced in the Pacific Northwest. It had to do with a relationship, and kind of tell you what I went through with this because it could pertain to other relationships where you have these little idiosyncrasies that cause problems and how to deal with them. So we'll wait for a few people to show up here before I do anything at all. Be my third show of the morning. Yes, count them. You could count them. It's okay. I'm going to head out the door after I do this show because there's some shopping we got to do. But I wanted to get this thing because I just ran into this booklet. It's kind of bringing back the past a little bit with a relationship I did have to go show you that what I've gone through with some relationships and what other people have also done. Not sure where to begin here, but maybe begin at the beginning. I know you've been getting an overfull of my shows on here, but not much different than a whole lot of people that are doing daily shows, even multiple. But alas, I'm retired, remember? Okay. And the booklet is actually called Bulimia in Relationships. And everything I read is going to be very explanatory. Perhaps you in your lifetime been with somebody of that nature, and perhaps it was very difficult, or you may have some similar thing going on. But we're going to read this whole booklet. It's not that terribly long. But it goes to show you, I kind of been around the block a few times. And I've had all kinds of different relationships, and some were very challenging, and this was one of them. But since it is a little publication I made, and what people don't know is I had a, which is now defunct, but I had a little internet thing going on called Northwest Informational Services. So much that you think you know about me, that I don't do anything productive or don't write or don't do anything like that, but now you're going to find out. Okay, I'm trying to see where I want to get on this. Okay. This is the booklet, Believing in Relationships by Frank Pasaglia. How it can affect your personal relationships. You could relate this to many things. That's why we're gonna read this puppy. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read this puppy. And forward on this. And we got a forward on here. The forward is, whether you're in a relationship with an alcoholic, a drug addict, or an eating disorder related problems, the all will represent a long-term tolerance, combined with understanding and possibly some counseling for yourself, to be able to continue this relationship. You will find comfort in researching all you can about the disease. You can use this information in understanding what's going on psychologically, emotionally, and physiologically with this person. It's not an easy road to follow. Your goal is to keep this relationship healthy, possibly at many costs to your own well-being. Okay, I don't have to really show you the text. About the author, I am neither an expert nor a counselor or claim to have any expertise on the disease of bulimia. I am, however, a person just like you, perhaps, that has had the experience of being with a person with bulimia and experienced firsthand all the related problems, efforts, progresses, regresses, and emotional distress and eating disorder victim experiences. Along with this, my own personal experience shared with a few helpful hints. And we're going to begin. Notes about recovery. During the time I was dating, it was easy to see how troubled she was. Her self-esteem was at a very low level. She tended to lack the maturity level that I experienced for her age group. When she recently had made her appearance again in my life, we had broken up, we came back. She quickly commented that when we were dating, I was a very ill person. I'm not the same person anymore. I've matured so much, and I've come a long way since then, she quotes. This I found to be a provocative statement because, in light of her wonderful accomplishment of celebrating her one-year birthday of refraining from her laxative abuse, she was still highly self-centered, obviously still insecure. Therefore, praise the bulimic's positive changes and realize recovery is a slow process. The main issue is that there are positive changes happening one step at a time. This could pertain to alcoholics or anything else, by the way, folks. Remember, to go on to get 1 year without abusing their body is largely a large accomplishment. The psychological and emotional progress is sometimes a little slower in the coming. Okay, recovery. You must understand that if he or she will not recover overnight. The person is not fully recovered until the obsession with food is over. There we go. This pertains to a lot of people here. Most females find themselves victim to this disease compared to men, although a surprising number of men do share this problem. The person probably started this behavior from a need to keep an appearance in a world that puts high emphasis on being slim and looking good. This does pertain to people on here too. Okay. Other contributing factors are peer pressure, family inadequacies, etc. There's an obsession with food on a daily basis and resulting calories and the weight produced as a result of eating. The bulimic is never satisfied with bodily appearances and usually will fight the urges, rarely to eat every day and to keep the weight gain away, but will eventually go on a binge, sound familiar to some people, and consume massive amounts of food, usually in a short period of time. The food is usually sweets or any food which is highly caloric or non-nutritious. The guilt that follows afterwards results in the person either purposely vomiting or taking large amounts of laxatives as an effort to get rid of the high caloric intake. This is good stuff, by the way. Okay, so here we go. Okay, on the following page, I have a letter, and it was actually never sent and not completed. The letter was an example of the emotional distress created when this woman and I parted. I was left with no answers to my questions, no given reason, no explanation. They have the ability to act spontaneously upon an idea or an action without regards to another person's feelings. They generally know what they're doing when they do it, but eventually the realities of what, I gotta get adjust my glasses here. Okay, here we go. I want to continue, but eventually the realities of what they did catch up to them. They have to be in a controlling position in their lives. This all sounds familiar, doesn't it? I tend to paint a picture that is not very pretty when I point out all the downfalls of a hardcore bulimic, but that's the purpose of my writings. I don't want you to think that it will be easy in your dealings with one, because it will not. Living or dealing with an alcoholic or a person with a drug addiction can be difficult. But as with all addictions, they generally are difficult. It does not at all mean that a relationship cannot work, but With proper counseling support groups and your love and understanding, along with therapy for both of you, there's a great hope for a happy future. She can't do it all on her own, but what she actually, without the need, without the need of a security blanket, no, indeed, her new boyfriend at the time represented her newest security. Being a self-admitted codependent, she will most likely continue to need the security. Their newfound security will most likely last only until the relationship parts. It is within my belief that the relationship will not last, if not only because she entered this relationship based on untruthful and in an unfaithful way, and as I believe for reasons primarily for security and convenience. I do believe she cares for the man, but as she told me, and as I still believe, she doesn't love the man. There were many other reasons I felt she didn't love him. From our conversations together, I learned of some differences and possibly some concerns. An insecure person will convince themselves of anything they wish. This pertains to a lot of stuff here on YouTube, guys. An insecure person will convince themselves of anything they wish as long as it was self-serving. They will eventually believe everything they do or say is in fact the truth, even if it wasn't. The story, of course, is based upon her own situation, although many bulimics are indeed insecure and still. Only this particular person I base my writing on from my own personal experience with her. My knowledge of bulimia is based on readings, personal experience, and from my attendance to related support groups with her. The information provided in this booklet was derived from my experience, and I will note that not all bulimics display every textbook definition. When her funds ran out and she wasn't working, she wanted help from her parents. They were well-to-do people retired from professional careers. Her father was a doctor and mother was a nurse. She made clear that she would never ask or expect to receive any more financial help or bailouts from her parents, who were her past basic security blankets in time of emergencies. She always felt the need to show her peers that she was self-supporting and independent in every way. There was no love lost between us, but even though I offered her to move in with me or to get a place of a mutual choice together, she eventually chose to move away with this guy. It was, as I gathered, a choice based on issues of security. I was not a person who had financial security or a great job or a future at the time. This influenced her decision in part because her so-called boyfriend did have a skill and a good job situation waiting for him in California. She had to find reasons to justify why she was moving to California, and this man, after knowing him such a short period of time. It is the bulimic's insecurities that sometimes guides what directions and decisions are made in their life. Security she needed even more than the food she ate. Although she claimed emancipation from help from her family in times of need, she chose to refuse any help if offered most of the time to help prove that she was I ran off on here. Let's see. Okay, let's move on. Okay, when we weren't talking for a while, she was actually quite shocked when I found a way to communicate with her. She didn't know how I knew how to reach her, but let's see. Continued sending letters trying to seek some answers. I asked all the usual questions. Why? Why did she move to California? This did not really surprise me because knowing her as I do, I figured she was feeling a bit guilty on our breakup. I decided to do my own research because I needed to satisfy my quest for more answers. Through this research, I discovered that she was feeling very insecure about her living situation. She was on unemployment insurance and was soon running out. She told me at one point in time she would go as far as getting suicidal. And we actually talked and finished a telephone conversation without arguing over one thing or another. This was a milestone considering our past relationship. We were not able to guarantee that some argument would materialize over the course of the conversations. We soon got together, and I was euphoric having her back on my side again. Over a period of about 3 weeks, she continued with quite regularity to pay me visits. We celebrated New Year's Eve together. It was wonderful. She seemed to have spent more time with me than her so-called boyfriend. She told me her boyfriend was to spend 2 weeks at her apartment with her so he can have shelter until his new apartment in California was ready. This was quite uncomfortable for me. I certainly did not like or want to accept the idea because I still loved her very much. I didn't want to share her love with him. We were very intimate during these 3 weeks, and she shared with me her deepest feelings of how she felt about me. It was good to hear and feel her love, although the word love was a word hard to express verbally for her. She showed her feelings for me in many ways, not necessitating words. There was a certain look, a touch. It was uncomfortable for her to be in between two different men. A decision had to be made between us. She claimed she would make a definite decision after he moved out of her apartment, but what I didn't know was soon to come. On her last visit with me was very interesting. Let's see. The woman mentioned, okay. One day I received a phone call from her. I was actually very shocked and somewhat relieved too. It was after 2.5 years had gone by. She claimed she was unsure of why she called me. We talked, eventually got together for a drink to talk. It was a great meeting and I enjoyed her every minute of our reunion. She then decided to tell me that she was dating this guy she met. Okay, same guy. She was honest to tell me, and although it hit me hard, I tried to accept the idea. She downplayed any serious connection to him. We talked on the telephone to the wee hours of the morning. We had obviously a lot to catch up on. She commented on how I have changed so positively myself. Yeah. Let's get back to the eating habits. Well, eating habits, yours versus hers. You eat normally because you're not the one with the disorder, and her rituals should not be encouraged. Do take a stand on issues you feel are important regarding her nutrition. If you feel she's looking rather ill and there's any question about her well-being. Other than that, do not push them to eat anything or anytime they want. Basically, all you can do is stand back and accept what is and try to understand what turmoil she's experiencing. Try to offer support and love in a way that is not intrusive to the normal routine of life. This thing here about the process of recovery and everything else. There were graphics in this book too, And I'm just not going to read the whole thing, but well, I could read all this, but I'm not really. I know her love was confusing to me. I didn't get to see her very much, and the intimacy I hoped for was not always there. It seemed like we had something strong going on, but I never felt the bond of what a normal couple felt. These were arguments all the time over issues were very small and made into large ones. I was hurting over and over again, but believed in our love and refused to give up this relationship for the reasons that I really believed I could actually help her. Yeah. Thing is here, it says, do not have any too grandiose expectations initially as far as future plans and goals. Take it one day at a time and, again, be supportive. From a friendship first, and then take your time with it. Same thing as any of you two is meeting anybody out here in the Philippines, Nurture it and be aware that most people with this problem cannot successfully have a healthy relationship with the opposite sex unless there is no pressure put on the relationship for reasons from personal experiences. My experience has been a pretty hard one because I fell in love with her knowing that it was going to be an uphill battle and that there would be a number of issues to contend with. One example is that I would never only be able to see her when it was totally convenient for her. Without regards, what my needs were. It was very frustrating to myself, and it did cause problems. Other times when we get together with her, I would notice how easily tense she got over small things and maybe you and I would probably not normally think twice about, but her sex drive was also very low and sometimes non-existent and therefore caused some problems. There was a lot of insecurity going on with her. And okay, and all I'm going to sign off with, as far as reading this, behavior to expect in a relationship like that. Refusal to have dinner in public eateries, changing personality, moments of high tension or anxiety, periods of low self-esteem, long periods of time spent at home, refusal at times to answer the phone, calls, or door, a highly scheduled nature, reluctance to socialize and meet new people, anxiety and paranoia from being in a public place, example, a concert, movie theater, public swimming pool, whatever, schizophrenic tendencies, defensiveness, habitual lying, excessive exercising in many cases, fear of commitment in a relationship, the need to prove independence to family and peers, eagerness to succeed in a job or career, building self-esteem from relationships, periods of extreme depression, sometimes suicidal tendencies, lack of hope, periods of despair, eagerness to please family and to gain approval. So this kind of relates to other things too, besides a relationship I had with her. There's like a shitload more in here, but I'm not gonna read this. But and I go here to suggested readings and so forth. So yeah, I did this book a long time ago. like some of the graphics in here. But anyway, that's what was going on with that. And yes, I've been through some very interesting relationships. And this was I'd probably say one of the most challenging relationships that I have had. To this day, I don't know if it's ironic or whatever, but she with a guy who runs a number of halfway houses for male alcoholics. I guess he was the one and he started a business. I know he probably owned multiple houses. She's doing very well. She had a kind of a CEO job at a big landscaping company in San Francisco. I'm sure she made some pretty good figures per year on that. Inheritances from her parents. One was a doctor, but she has a couple of other sisters to share it. I'm sure she's doing financially wonderful. I know you lost out on that one, Frank, didn't you? Yeah, but it's not even the money. Yeah, she's a millionaire right now. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question. However, but dealing with that. But I think to this day, the last I've ever heard is that she did gain weight. She don't look like the same person. She totally adjusted to her situation. She's not afraid to gain weight like she was when she was bulimic. I mean, proper counseling or whatever happened to her has really helped her out a lot. I think she has a couple of children too, I think. And this is all information going back from a long time, but I don't know currently what she's doing, and it's not my business to really know. As long as she's happy what she's doing, I'm happy for her. This was a very intense relationship, and it wasn't a terribly long. It was about a year's long relationship, but a lot has happened in that 1 year. Yeah, she was a good-looking chick and all that. She was, I found her good-looking anyway, but to my taste, blonde and beautiful, the body to match, to die for, actually. But, at times she was a little bit too underweight. She didn't see it, but that's part of the disease. You don't see that. You don't see that. They don't see that. You'll see it, but they don't see it. But it was my fault in a way because to a friend, Kim, who actually was best friends with her, she told me that, I was single, and she told me, well, I got a friend that's single now, and the name is, Suzanne, and blah, 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 and told me that she's really skinny, though, had some problems, bulimia or something. I said, oh, shit. Okay, well, I'll meet her. They came over for that. What do you call that game? We were playing some kind of a game, and she turned to Kim and said, yeah, well, this is a nice guy. I'm glad you introduced me to him. One thing to let another, and I came over and all that stuff, and we just hit it off from there. And it was just a very unusual, very trying relationship. I was in my glory for the most part. A decent woman with a decent brain, comes from a good family. And I was just a schmuck, really. Still figuring out where I was in Seattle at the time, job-wise and where I was going. So I wasn't, in all honesty, the ideal candidate for her for a boyfriend. Because I've always believed that if you come from a well-to-do family, you're going to wind up with a very well-to-do person. And in order she would ever believe to this day that I've actually owned a house in Seattle, she probably would never believe it. Because I don't think she knew I was going anywhere, really. Because I didn't live in the nicest place in the world. The house I rented, it was adequate, but nothing to write mom home about, But, she tried to build me up when I first met her parents and her sisters. Well, see, he's got an ad in the Yellow Pages for his photography. She tried to build me up. Yeah, is what she tried to do. And that's what they do. And little did she know that basically I'd, wind up owning a house in Hawaii. Is it her loss? According to how you look at it. But I think that it was ingrained in her coming from a well-to-do family and born with the silver spoon in her mouth, which she hated her friends in high school and her peers always saying that because she was always very spoiled. And, it probably wouldn't have worked out. It's just at the time, it wouldn't have worked out because I didn't have my shit together at the time. I really did not have my shit together. Later on, I began to, and I really began to work steadily and everything else. And I wanted to be able to buy a house in Seattle. She wasn't in my life then, but it would have been an ideal situation, seeing the progress in my life. And but she never got to see that. Nevertheless, own a home in Hawaii and so forth. You know, uh, maybe she missed out on a few things, maybe she didn't. But I have always thought she was a city girl by heart, and she probably wouldn't be able to handle. I don't know if she'd ever be able to handle living in Hawaii, not on my island anyway. Because it was pretty much an agricultural place. I think she'd be bored out of her mind without good malls, and she was always very business savvy, so there was not many opportunities on a big island, so that would have never worked out. So, hope you enjoyed the story. Yes, I do write, and it's just a booklet. It's only a copy of the booklet. The other booklet is actually colored in pink. Believe Me in Relationships by Frank Pataglia. Northwest Informational Services. Yes, I actually did have an online sort of kind of an informational business, and it had a lot to do, everything to do with the Pacific Northwest. So there's a lot of things you don't know about me that you claim you do. I did get into writing a bit, and although I'm the worst I'm the biggest typo expert in the world, it's just I don't wear my glasses, or I just write too fast, and I'm just too fast on the trigger. And I'm not a big English major either, so I'll hold that against myself too. I'm not an English major, so don't expect perfect English from me, because you're not going to get a college graduate or not. English is not my forte as far as my education and studying English and everything, and verbs and everything. That was just not my thing. Pronouns, nouns, adjectives, all that shit, the whole ball of wax. No expert in that. And I fuck up a lot on that too, I admit. But that wasn't my forte. Period. Okay, hope you enjoyed this. Remember, there's more to a person than you think there is. Give them a chance to, you know, exhibit the different facets of their life and personality, and you might get to see a different side of somebody. Sometimes I think I'm a world of knowledge, and sometimes I think I'm dumb as the day is long, sometimes, or I'm in between there somewhere. But I have the ability to write, I have the ability to understand things, I have the ability to see through things, I have the ability to see things that maybe some people don't see. And I think that's what creates some friction, because I do have kind of a habit of putting that mirror, as I always talk about, in front of people when they get a little aggressive with me. And I kind of pointed out that, hey, take a really good look. Take a good look at yourself. You're just an empty shell. I'm not going to start singing. But a lot of people are an empty shell. They have a big void in their life, whether it's eating problems, whether it's drinking, or whatever it might be, or whether it's their loneliness. People are dealing with this every day, and it's not a very pleasant experience for people. They're not going to admit that they're having all these problems, but they do have these problems, and it really interferes with their life as far as going forward, is what I'm trying to say. As far as going forward in their life, it prevents them from going forward. So they're always stagnant, and as they would say, chasing their own tail, but they're not achieving anything along the way. They're just getting more bitter and bitter about their life, but they just don't want to do anything about it, or they feel that they can't do anything about it. One thing doesn't always justify the other. And that's what goes on. I see it right here on YouTube every fucking day. Excuse my French. Every day. It's so clear to me, you know. But getting people to admit their faults, it's never going to happen on social media. They're all kingpins of their community. All the knowledge masters that know law, they know everything. They know about your personal life, every single thing you do, and they may know some information because what you talk about, but they don't know everything about your life and who you really are other than your YouTube personality. You may come off in a way to people on YouTube to sound like you're quite, I don't know. There's a lot of labels we could put on people. But some people have a YouTube personality that's totally different than if you actually sat down and broke bread with them. I think I'm one of these people, but it's not far from who I am on YouTube. I mean, I do speak my mind, and I do try to be helpful in many ways. Some people don't want to see it that way, but I may offer advice on things that would really help somebody, but they don't have to take my advice, and that's their right. But maybe a few people, if they'd listened to me, I would have saved them a lot of trouble, whether they either come to the Philippines or not, or whether they really fit into the society out here in Southeast Asia. And some people really don't. They really don't. And some people are better off staying where they were back in their country or states, and they weren't meant to be in the Philippines. They just don't have the personality. They don't have the patience. They don't have the ability to socialize within a new culture. And that's what destroys them. You can't come here with the thought and the whole concept that, you're going to conquer the Philippines. You're going to get all these women and stuff. They're going to be flocking to you like a rock star. But it's really not that way. It's so far from the truth. It's not even funny. A good woman will take to you, to your personality and how you treat them. And a good woman will allow time in between getting too intimate. Just knowing the person a very short period of time is not recommended, the first couple of days or so to be intimate. I mean, you got to get to know each other first. And Filipinos are pretty big on throwing their body at men, unfortunately, that they find attractive and see some hope with, but without knowing the man, most women should really hold off, and that's how they'll see if this man is real or not. Does he want her just to get in her pants, or does he really interested in her? And that's something to think about, something to practice, guys. Because the way Filipinos think out here, they're just too emotional, and they just go kind of fast forward. That's why some of them get pregnant. That's why some of them wind up in a bad relationship, because they didn't think it through. I want to meet a foreigner. I want to meet a foreigner. I want to have a half-white baby. I mean, whatever the reason is, or this guy's got money. But remember, you're throwing yourself into a relationship that may not work because the elements were not clearly there, that you did not spend the time to research each other. And I hear it all the time on all these shows. All these guys are getting ripped off for money and, the gravy train, And these Filipinos are riding the gravy train for these unsuspecting, very gullible and very naive foreigners that come to this country. Anyway, my show was basically having to do with a woman that had bulimia, and I did write a booklet on that many, many years ago. Still have it here. This was a draft, so one page did not kind of roll into the other. That's why I skipped a few things on it. There was a lot more to read, but I didn't want to read it all. Some of it got a little too personal, and so I keep it to myself. But that's what I went through with one of my relationships, and it was really a tough cookie. And as I said, it wasn't long lasting. Within a year, all this has happened. I've even been over to San Francisco twice to visit her during that period of time when she moved out to California. One by plane, one by bus. She made a mistake, she felt, and the guy she came out there with, she took everything with her by U-Haul. Then she was regretting it, calls me on the phone. I made a mistake. What am I going to do? And she needed you know, to talk to me and confide in me. She said, "You're the last person I should be talking to about this after all I did to you." And she did a lot. I think she's the only woman that really made me tear up that I can remember. She's the only woman that made me tear up. Because you think you're on top of the heap with somebody, and you think you've got this fantastic relationship. It could be a Filipina, it could be anyone from your country, whatever. And you're like, you got this adrenaline and GABA level that's through the roof. I mean, you're like, you hit the home run. Beauty, brains, body. Man, I just won the lottery. You're thinking to yourself. Then it turns out you didn't win the lottery. You went broke in a way. Okay, so you made the wrong choice. And maybe the person had some great qualities, but you always have to remember their upbringing. They come from a wealthy family. Chances are they want to be with a very successful person. She did wind up with someone who owned numerous businesses in California, which are basically kind of halfway houses for men that are alcoholics, ironically. It looks like she's got her life together. A couple of children, which I can't even imagine her having children because the way a bulimic thinks in their mind, they don't want to see fat, their stomach getting fat, they commit suicide or something. It's that serious. So apparently she's gotten over those demons. I'm very happy for the fact that she did. I just wish when I met her she didn't have all these demons with her. Because, we might still be together today. But life moves on, and so did my life, and so did hers, and that's just the way it is. I've had a lot of what I call close call relationships with women. Not a lot, but they were numerous that I thought were probably pretty good for me, and I could see myself with them, but it all played out for the best. Call it karma, whatever you want to call it. It turns out that they were not the best choice for me. But you see, you get kind of hyped up in the moment, when you're with somebody and you find them attractive and good sex and good companionship and saying, man, I got it all, right? But are they really perfect for you? Or are you just kind of settling for them? Unfortunately, in my marriage, it was settling. I was new to Seattle and blah, 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 and I went through that story. I don't really care to go through it again. It wasn't a love affair, really. But baby was born. I took responsibility. Rest is history. And we're not together, and I divorced her. And it would not have worked out in time anyway. She was not the right person for me in so many ways. Educational level, a few things about her background and lifestyle and things like that. It just would not have worked. I think we were like centuries apart. We were just so, I don't know, so different in so many ways. But that's the mistakes a lot of people make, especially when they come into the Philippines. They want to meet a woman and be with a woman. They don't want to be lonely. They might even convince themselves that they have feelings for them because of loneliness. But that's not really what's happening. They're trying to ease their loneliness. They're trying to find every little good point about that Filipina that they can, although they realize that she's not a good match. They're not right for each other, but the guy will forge on to push this relationship, and he will do things afraid of being alone to keep her in the life. And, after just a tiny short period of knowing her, buying her all kinds of shit to keep her in the equation, and it never works out. With that being said, I'll keep this show on. Thanks for listening.